Thank you so much again, Vicki and Michelle, for being here with us tonight. And I'm going to turn it over to Vicki to get us started.
Well, thank you so much, Olivia, and thank you to the library. We're so happy to be here tonight. And I'm really excited to share 3 recipes on my end that are actually part of my new cookbook that Olivia was mentioning. And the first one that we're starting with tonight is called Summer Red-Skinned Potato Salad. And everything that Michelle and I are making tonight has kind of a theme of very minimal work in the kitchen that's just kind of perfect for warm weather where you really don't feel like doing a lot of, turning your oven on and spending a lot of time preparing and baking and things like that. So these are nice, simple recipes that are all really nice for warm weather. So here we are going to start with our potato salad, which is kind of a staple, as Memorial Day is coming close and all of the summer activities are approaching. And so I'm going to start with actually just some red skin potatoes. What I did was in my cookbook, I just refer to just taking about 4 cups worth of potatoes and chopping them into cubes and boiling them on the stove, just like you would make potatoes normally. But today I actually took a shortcut, which you're welcome to do as well. And that is that I put these into a pressure cooker. I took whole red potatoes and I just put them into the pressure cooker for about 18 minutes. First, I scrubbed them and took off any little spots that felt as though they were a little, texture problem where we would want to make sure that they were more, easy to enjoy in your potato salad. So I kind of, made sure that everything with these are just kind of all nice and clean and ready to use. And I put these potatoes, actually I took probably double what I really needed, and I can have nice leftover potatoes to air fry or do something with it at another time. But what I wanted to do at the end of cooking them for a total of 18 minutes at high pressure, then releasing the pressure, pulling the potatoes out of about 1.5 cups or 2 cups of water that they were steaming in, and then just allowed them to cool. I refrigerated them, but you wouldn't need to refrigerate them. They're really fine as soon as they're cool enough to touch. But I think the texture is probably a little better if you have the opportunity to just make them ahead. And, Michelle and I always talk about batch cooking. It's great to make lots of potatoes all at once so that you can have some extras later. So from that, I made maybe 6 or 8 potatoes, and I took about 5 or 6, turned out to be about 4 cups worth. And I chopped them into about 1-inch cubes, maybe a little smaller. And so I've got a bowl full here of red skin potatoes that are all nice and ready to use. And again, I pressure cooked these at 18 minutes. You could do for whole potatoes. For small ones, if you've already chopped them into cubes, probably take about 4 or 5 minutes. And now we're ready to just assemble. So I've got about 1 cup's worth of chopped celery that I'm going to just pour in. Again, everything's going to go into just this bowl. And then I'm adding to this some dill pickles. And, I like that flavor of dill. So I'm just taking about 2 tablespoons of dill pickles that I diced up nice and small. And then I'm adding some seasoning. So I've got here some fresh dill, about 2 tablespoons of fresh dill. You could use the jarred kind, or the, this kind you get in the spice aisle that's already dried if you wanted to. You'd use a little bit less of that. And also you can use either fresh or dried tarragon. And so those are in here, and I'm just going to mix that up. And we're going to start with just this very, very simple base. And if you wanted to add any other vegetables to this, you certainly could. I have in the past added corn to my potato salad, all really good. And so it looks like this at this point. And now I'm going to make the sauce, the dressing. So into a small jar, a blender jar or any size you've got, I'm putting 1/2 cup of raw cashews. So that's going to be my base. If you were allergic to nuts, you could use beans. You could use white beans instead. And then now I'm going to add my liquids. I've got some water, some rice wine vinegar, which is a very delicate vinegar, and some Dijon mustard, 1.5 tablespoons. I'm actually using a brown spicy mustard here, but any kind of darker mustard that's got a nice pungent flavor would be perfect. Anything you like. And then I'm adding, besides the water here and the vinegar, as I mentioned, I also added my lemon juice in. So all my liquids were all in that little jar. And now just a little salt and pepper. So we've got all of our very simple, all of our very simple dressing ingredients. And I'll make a little noise for a second, turn this on.
Oh my God, are you kidding me?
That's how quickly that's done. I used a Vitamix, and if you don't have a high-powered blender like this, if your blender is, just a little bit less powerful, that works too. I would just recommend soaking the cashews before you put them in the blender, just to make sure that all of the, that the texture of the dressing ends up nice and really creamy. And so then we're just going to pour this right over. Just scrape out all that flavor from the blender. And now we'll just mix this all together. It smells really good. This is my first potato salad of the season. It's going to be so good. Several days worth of. This is really good for several days. It just gets more and more flavorful. And that's it. It's all done. We've got our potato salad, and it looks like this. And I'm going to plate it just to show you how it looks. I'll just take a little scoop and make a nice generous serving of it. And we've got our potato salad that easily. Michele?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I thought I had muted myself. Didn't I? Thought I unmuted myself.
You're unmuted now.
Yeah. Okay. I thought someone was saying to please unmute myself. I thought it was all right. Hello, everybody. And I'm grateful to be here with Vicki and congratulating her on her new book. So I'm going to do one of her recipes at the end, but I'm doing a couple different ones to start with. The first one is a kale salad. It's from Chris Carr. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. She is I don't know how many years now, survivor of stage 4 cancer. And so she's had a movie, Crazy Sexy Cancer. And so she's got the Crazy Sexy Kitchen. And she's really an inspirational woman. And she's got a lot of wonderful, her social media, a lot of things that she really wants to help people. So this is a recipe from her book. And I'm starting with shredded kale. I think most of you have seen how you just strip kale. You just take it by the stem and remove the leaves. It works really easily. I'm using lanzanata, which is also Tuscan or Dino kale. It's a little less bitter. And a lot of people that aren't really big on kale yet do well with this because it's a little milder. And what I'm doing is I'm going to massage it a little bit. That's why I have my gloves on. I'm putting some avocado in here, and I'm just going to work it to wilt it with the avocado. It's going to make it a little bit softer, a little less bitter. And for me, I don't put a dressing on top of this because I like the avocado is my whole food fat. So I'm just going to mix this in a little bit. When you massage it, it does get softer, less bitter, and it also absorbs the flavors better. Now you can massage it with your hands, or you could use some other, I don't use oil, but some people will use oil for this. I'm just going to mix it all in. And then I'm going to put in another half of an avocado that I've diced, just to add a little bit. You can put whatever kind of vegetables you like with this. It works. This is just her version. So I've got diced avocado in here. I'm putting in a cup of diced bell peppers, a mixture of yellow, orange, and red. I don't like, if you don't get along well with the green, it's there. It's usually because it's just a little less ripe, and it's the least doesn't have quite the nutrient. They all have a lot of good nutrients in it, but the red has so much more, and it's got, they have a lot of vitamins and minerals and fiber. So this is a very nutrient dense salad. All our dishes are nutrient rich. Just putting it like that. And then I'm going to add 1/4 cup of chopped parsley. I just put in my, and then some lemon juice that happens to have a little parsley in it. And I'm going to mix that up with some tongs. That's how easy that is. If you want to add a little salt, you can. If you don't want it, you don't need to. And then one thing I like to do to make it a little bit more special presentation, and you see how fast this went together. It didn't take long at all. And just if you don't want to buy 3 different peppers to get that cup of pepper, then you can just buy the bag of the little ones. They come in all 3 colors anyway, and you can just use those, cut those up. But for a nice presentation, I like to make a cucumber ring. So you can use a mandolin. Be very careful with mandolins, please. I like people to wear a cut glove. And then I'm just, I don't know if you can see me here. I'm just slicing. So I've got these different slices. You don't want it to be too thick or it won't hold up, and too thin. I mean, just got to be sort of the right size. And you take 2 of the pieces like this. This is a good size like this. And you just stand it up. There's enough moisture in the cucumber that it'll stick together when you press it. And then I'm just going to put the salad in there. And it fell apart because that's the kind of day I'm in. Oh boy. You know, I'm going to use my other one. This one was already together better, so I'll use this. You can top it like with a little seed mix, or I will put sesame seeds, and there you have it. Just a nice little cup, and I think the cucumber ring makes a nice presentation. And that's how simple that was. So back to you, Vicki.
Thank you, Michelle. That really looks good. That looks so refreshing and delicious. So my next one that I'm going to make is what I'm calling a perfect chickpea salad sandwich. And this salad is just super great because it's just nice and easy to make. And it's kind of, for a lot of people, sort of a substitute for a tuna salad or something like that, where you can get plenty of protein, and it's and yet it's really going to be so good for you without with all the good things that go along with being plant-based. So we're going to start with a can of chickpeas, and what I have done is actually just rinse them and drain them, and I've got them in a bowl, and I'm just going to kind of, you know, mash this up a little bit with a like a potato masher. And you can be, you know, as vigorous as you want to with this, and take a little bit of time and just kind of break these down, or you can kind of keep them a little bit more whole. Kind of depends how much texture you want. I think it's kind of good either way. I like to have sort of a somewhere in between, so some of them still have their shape, and, you know, others are kind of broken down and a little bit flaky. The texture kind of looking like a little bit like a tuna salad sandwich. So what we're doing is really making a filling that we're going to be able to use in a sandwich. But you could actually use this as just on its own, on top of a salad, a green salad, or within a wrap or anything like that as well. So, you know, you can spend as much time, as I say, on this as you want. I'm just going to kind of do a quick mash up, so it'll kind of look like this, somewhere sort of in between the texture of whole and broken up. And now to that, I'm going to add all my salad ingredients to kind of turn it into a delicious combination, because just the beans are sort of plain. So now we're going to add our flavor. So what I'm doing now is adding some celery and then some red pepper for color. You could use a different color. You could use a mixture, as Michele was doing. You can add now some dill pickles. And again, I'm kind of adding some of the same flavors you saw a moment ago in the first dish, although it's going to be a very different kind of flavor here once we're done. And now to that, I'm going to add a little bit of hummus. I'm using, this is a brand called Oasis. This one is actually a jalapeno, although the one I've got here is just a plain hummus, and there's no oil added in this. And so I like to use this, although, and you can certainly use your own, the kind that Michele will be talking about as well. But I, just for convenience, like to have a hummus on hand that doesn't have any oil when I can find it. And otherwise I like to make my own. So now I'm adding a little bit of yellow mustard. This is just the plain kind of bright yellow mustard that is kind of the everyday type. And then to that, I'm going to add a little bit of fresh green. So some parsley and some more dill. You know, I've got that fresh dill. I'm adding dill to this as well. And then to that, now I'm going to add some fresh lemon juice, a few tablespoons. Let's see if we need a little more, 3 or 4, kind of depends. A little bit of salt and pepper. And now I'm just going to mix this up. And so the hummus is really kind of becoming the substitute for what we think of it usually as a mayo in something like a tuna salad. And the mustard is adding a little bit of tang, and the lemon juice as well. And now we've just got this beautiful filling that is ready to put into our sandwich. And again, you can kind of break this up as much as you want. I'm kind of going quickly so that you can get the feel for what we're looking for here. And it's going to look like this at this point. And now we're going to make our sandwich. So you can use any kind of bread or toast or pita pockets, anything you like. I'm going to grab from my toaster an Ezekiel toasted English muffin, which is nice and crunchy now. And I'm going to, just for fun here, you wouldn't have to do this, but I'm going to put a little more hummus on my base, just kind of like glue, to help all of the toppings settle in and stay happy on that base. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of shredded lettuce on my base as well. Could add some tomatoes or anything you like. Again, it's very customizable to whatever you enjoy. And now I'm just going to put my sandwich topping on top here. And I've got just this beautiful open face sandwich. And it looks like this, ready to enjoy. It's really summery, really fresh, lots of good texture and flavor, and nice and easy. And that's that one. Michele?
That looks beautiful. And I always, when we do these classes, I wish we could share. So my next one is a collard wrap. They're very nice. They're easy, not necessarily the neatest thing to eat when you're out. Like if you're, they can break apart, but they're very good. And if you're gluten-free, it's a really nice option. And a lot of times, I mean, you can put whatever fillings you want in them, but hummus is usually a pretty standard filling. So what I'm going to make is my lemony beet hummus, which is also my beet hummus for beet haters. I didn't realize until I was older that a lot of people don't like it, because when I was in 2nd grade, I went to a private school and they made you eat whatever. If you said small, medium, or large, you had to eat it no matter what. And I'd never seen beets before, but I was a big fan of cranberry jelly. So you can probably tell where this is going. And what, okay. And I hated it. immediately because I was expecting my cranberry jelly. So for years I just didn't touch beets. And then I found out how good they are for us. So I didn't want that school's archaic policy to keep me from a healthy food. So I came up with this recipe. So it doesn't even really affirm beet haters like it. So the first thing I'm going to do, because if you have a food processor and you're mincing garlic, it's really easy to just mince the garlic and drop it into the chute. That's the mincing for you. 2 cloves of garlic going in. And I'm just going to drop everything else in. I've got a can of no salt added. Well, it's actually a box of no salt added chickpeas, drained, rinsed. I did save the aquafaba. That's the liquid that comes, that's in the can or the jar. It looks like this. I drain it all and keep it in a container because I'm putting 2 tablespoons in, but if I want more, I have it. So 2 tablespoons of that. I've got a ½ teaspoon each of coriander and cumin. I've got a ½ teaspoon of lemon zest, which I love. It really brightens it up and helps mask some of that earthiness of the beet. And I have the lemon juice, brightening, and I've got, I roasted the beet. Now, if it's too hot for you and you don't want to do that, you can buy them. They stain. You can see that. It looked like, I mean, it can scare people who walk in to see that. And then I'm gonna take out this. I've got a couple tablespoons of tahini. I just get mine at Trader Joe's. And when you get a new jar of tahini, it should just be sesame seeds, nothing else. And if you get a natural kind like that, it's going to look like there's oil added because there'll be oil at the top of the jar. And that's just because it's separated. It's not added oil. But always check your bottle, for the ingredients. Make sure there's nothing added. So now, other things added. Okay. Now, we're kind of a low sodium family. I caregive for my mother, and so I don't add salt into recipes as a rule. I'll add them at the table, those of us who want it. So I'm going to make some noise here and just mix this. So scrape the sides down. And things tend to collect at the bottom of the food processor, so you can give that a scoop too. Smells good. You take the food processor off. You can usually put your finger through a hole in the bottom there so the blade doesn't fall out. And you can see that color, nice bright pink. If you buy the steamed, like if you buy beets that are already cooked, if they're steamed, they're not going to be quite as bright, but they'll be just as good. And next, what I did, take a colored green. Now, I blanched it so it's a little bit easier to work with. And I'm going to take my knife and very carefully, I'll step this very carefully. I'm going to move this over. Just put this as flat as you can. You want to try just to get the avocados on there. Just remove the stem. You want to make it really as flat as possible so it's easier to roll. Don't worry if you break it. You want to try not to tear it very much, but they all usually have a hole in the leaves anyway, so don't sweat it. And just pare it down as much as you can. here. And then just the blanching, you can see it's a really vibrant green. I just put it in boiling water for about not even 30 seconds. I just wait for it to get green. And then I put it into an ice bath, which is right back here. So I have it right next to the stock pot where I was boiling the water. And again, you can see this is a leaf that is just, it hasn't been blanched, and this one has been. So you can see the difference, and this is a lot more flexible. So now I'm just whatever ingredients you want to put on. Feel free, you can do all sorts of things. You could put tofu in here. I start at the end that has the stem on it. Get that part over with. And the tendency, what people do a lot is they put too much in it, and then it can burst a bit. So I'm just putting some red onion, some cucumber. You can put whatever you want. And I'm putting a little bit of radish and some microgreens just to add a little bit more nutrient boost and a little bit of crunch. There's a lot of textures in here. So then like a burrito, you're gonna roll on the sides. These can get messy, but it's just, that's okay. They still taste good. You want to try to move the food back this way. See what I'm doing. And then you're going to roll it. And then you have the little collard grab. They can fall apart, but it's okay. It's a good meal. It's very nutritious. It's very versatile. And then you cut it open, you can see all the different things that are in there. And one thing I wanted to add about the lanceolato kale, or the kale, just kale in general, I really recommend getting organic. They have found that Environmental Working Group, EWG, they were saying there's a chemical that has been banned in other countries, but not here yet. I think they're just starting to get the FDA to ban it. It is Dactho, and it is in over 60% of the samples of kale, and it is a potential carcinogen. So this is one of those foods where I would go organic if possible. So you can, these leaves, they're pretty sturdy, back to the collard greens, they're pretty sturdy. So you can blanch a bunch of them, dry them well, separate them with a dish towel or paper towels and put them in a nice airtight container in the refrigerator, and they'll last for days. And you can just keep making these, or you can make a bunch of them at a time. So that's that. Back to you, Vicki.
Thank you, Michelle. That looks so good. And I absolutely love that hummus that you make. It's so good. And the color is so amazing. So, okay, so here we go. My last dish that I'm making is, I'm calling a fresh fruit yogurt parfait. And what I'm building it with is a recipe that is my simple blueberry granola that I actually have in my cookbook. And I'll show you how easy it is to use to build a nice fun parfait that can be used really as a dessert, or certainly, even a lovely breakfast, or in addition to a brunch, something like that. And the granola itself you can use any kind of crunchy granola you like, but making it on your own at home will allow you to control every ingredient that goes into it. And what I love about this recipe is it's beautifully crunchy, like you want your granola to be, but yet there's no sugar in it, no highly processed sweetener, and there's no oil. And that's really hard to find commercially. So mine is just simple, some oats, some chopped nuts. I use walnuts and pecans and almonds, some cinnamon, some dates, vanilla, and some freeze-dried fruit. And my recipe is for just blueberries, but I actually, to this batch, also added some strawberries. So these tiny little, pellets of lovely extra sweetness add a little crunch and delicious flavor to the granola. So now we'll just use that as kind of a garnish to our fresh fruit yogurt parfait. And you can use any kind of fruit that is in season or that you like, and you can change it from throughout the year, but this time of year, it's really nice to use fresh berries. And although my recipe says to use strawberries and blueberries, our strawberries didn't look that great when I was shopping. So I'm actually instead using raspberries, but whatever you like is great. So I'm going to just layer into some pretty glasses, some little parfait dessert bowls, some berries, putting blueberries in first, and then just putting a little bit of raspberries on top. And there's no measuring required. It's just whatever you like. And then I'm going to add a little bit of bananas, just because that banana creaminess of the sweet banana is just always nice, I think, with yogurt and berries. So I'm adding that. And then now I'm just going to put a little bit of yogurt, and I'm using, you could use any kind you like, but I'm using Kite Hill's plain unsweetened almond yogurt. And you can use any kind you like, but I love using the unsweetened because then I feel like I'm not getting any sugar that I am not controlling. So I'm just adding a little bit here, and then topping it with a little bit of my granola. This is just a fun crunch. And then I'm going to just repeat and add a little bit more fruit. You could add melon in here, or, you know, a different time of year, you could use apples or pears. You can even use frozen fruit for this, and that works really well too. You want your frozen, you know, you want it to be thawed enough that you can, that it's ready to enjoy. But it is perfectly fine to use that. But this time of year, it's so nice to use the fresh. And then I'm just going to top it with a little bit more of my banana. Dash more of my yogurt. And as I mentioned, that's not sweetened yogurt. So I've got a little tip that a little secret that I'm adding at the end. So then I'm adding a little bit more of my lovely granola on top for my crunch. And then here's the fun part. You can use any kind of juice you want, but I'm using just 2 tablespoons basically of orange juice, and you could squeeze your own. I'm just didn't have any oranges, so I don't normally buy orange juice, but this is like so nice of a way to add a little bit of extra flavor to the yogurt so that you don't feel like you need sugar and you don't miss it. You could use an apple juice or cherry juice or any other kind that you like. And it turns that yogurt almost more into a sauce because it is thinner with that juice in it. But you've got these beautiful yogurt fruit parfaits now that are full of berries and fresh fruit. It's almost all fruit really, with just a little bit of the added yogurt and granola for crunch. So that's that. Michele?
Now, my last recipe is one of Vicki's of her new book, and I really recommend that you get it. It's really good. It's the Mocha ice cream. It is all plant-based, whole food plant-based. It is it's really good if you have an ice cream machine. If you don't, you can still mix it up and freeze it. It's not quite the same consistency, but it's going to be just as delicious. So I do have a Cuisinart ice cream maker, and then my high-speed blender. That's really important too, just to make it super creamy. If you don't have a high-speed blender, I'm going to recommend that you soak everything, the cashews and the dates. I do soak the dates anyway, just because I want it as creamy as possible. Now, we are a decaffeinated family here, so you can go out and buy or get decaffeinated espresso, but I just use regular. I use decaf, and I'm putting about a cup of that. That'd be about 5 espresso shots. Really, I think also, well, I think it can be like an ounce per shot, but the recipe calls for about a cup. And I've got a half cup of cashews. I've got dates. I always recommend that I'll clean off my dates first, but always look at them before you put them in or eat them, because they can have little insects that are kind of brown, or they can have a mold that's black. And you bite into either one of those, you're not going to enjoy it. So I clean mine off. I pit them, take the stems off for sure. You want to make sure that'll make a big rack and it won't taste good. And then just put that all in. And I'm going to try not to get this all splashing. Okay. And then I have a teaspoon of vanilla. If you use vanilla powder, that would be about a half a teaspoon worth. And I've got 2 tablespoons of cacao. I love cacao. I mean, you can use cocoa powder. Cacao is a little less processed, and it's very low in fat, but it's got a lot of minerals and fiber. It's got a lot of great things, and it doesn't have what adds the fat in chocolate is the cocoa fat or milk fat. So it's really a healthy dish. It's really good for our hearts. It's wonderful. So I'm going to run this and make some more noise. A little pinch of salt too. Tamper. Push this down a little bit. It smells so good. Just have to let you know that. I wish you could all smell it. Now, when you're using an ice cream machine, you need to I just keep this in the freezer all the time because you never know when you're going to want to make some ice cream. And I put it in a plastic bag just to keep it from getting freezer burn or getting other things into it. So now I'm making this. Put the bowl inside. Again. Piece. And pouring the mixture in. It's very simple. Everything I made tonight is super simple. Maybe a little bit messy, but simple. I'm going to start it. Actually, I'm not going to start it because it's going to make a lot of racket until the class is over. It takes about 25 minutes in the machine. So I think I can just stop this here. It smells wonderful. It's super creamy. It's a wonderful chocolatey coffee ice cream. My son said if it was caffeinated, he would have it for breakfast. So I had made this one earlier. And it'll come out kind of a soft serve consistency. First, now this hasn't been in that long. Oh, it's so good. There's going to be a serious dent made in this after the class. I know. And you can see that. Doesn't that look luscious? And that's just one of the wonderful recipes in Vicki's book. Now, sometimes I'll put a chocolate shaving on it. I'll take a peeler and just shave some chocolate on top, or you could put fresh fruit, whatever you like. I get these containers. Vicki and I have a lot of the same containers, and we both have these. They're great for storing ice cream. And I love these little sizes because you can just make little portions. You know, I used to like to get those little Haagen-Dazs cups, single serving. So I get these little things, I fill these up with the lid on there, and then it's just one little portion for dessert. And I love doing it that way, but you can put them in ice cream, like in molds, popsicles, however you enjoy your ice cream, but definitely try it. It's delicious.
Okay, let me see. So Vicki, for the first question, for the potato salad, someone asked if they can use tofu instead of the cashews.
You probably can. I haven't tried it that way, but it does the same kind of thing of creating something as a creamy base that you can use as to add your flavors to. So you could use that probably, but you do need to experiment with how much of that you'd want to use. And also, as I mentioned, if you are choosing not to eat nuts, that you could use a white bean as a base instead.
All right.
I wanted to add if that was an allergy, a tree nut allergy, most of the time, Vicki, I don't know if you've tried it, but sunflower seeds usually can be replaced anytime you use cashews in a dish. So if that was an allergy, I just wanted to add that.
Very nice. Yes, they did not specify why they were asking, but all great tips. Definitely lots of different options. Okay, let me see. Vicki, do you do anything with the aquafaba from your can of chickpeas?
I don't use a lot of aquafaba. I know Michele does. I use a little bit now and then to kind of coat vegetables or potatoes and then season it. The seasonings stick a little better with the aquafaba, but I don't generally use much of that, but Michele can speak to that probably a little more than I can.
Well, you can freeze it in those little, we've talked about this, like a little silk pad or the little trays. I have a little one here where you can put, just to decrease waste, it's nice to just put them in something like this and freeze them so you can use like thaw out little servings. You could use this for, like Vicki said, to coat vegetables when you're going to roast them. And so that it's handy. I just, can freeze them in something like that.
Okay, very nice. Let me see. Okay. Vicki, how long would you say the chickpea salad and the potato salad last in the fridge?
I would say for several days, probably at least 4 days, maybe a little bit longer. But I think that, in my experience, we usually finish it before that. So I can't say beyond that, but definitely, for several days, a good 4 days at least.
Yeah, very nice. I'm sure it'll be gone quickly before then anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, another question for Vicki is someone was wondering if you can replace the hummus you used with like a veganaise in the chickpea salad or something like that.
Yeah, you definitely can. In fact, I'm using kind of the hummus as a base like you would use a vegan mayonnaise. So definitely same kind of an idea. These are many of the ideas that I'm sharing and that Michele is sharing. They're kind of mix and match, and it's kind of a template, as we sometimes say, for customizing it with your own choices. So if you're not a big on hummus and you'd rather use a vegan mayonnaise, you certainly could. I tend to use a hummus. I like that I can kind of control a little bit more, the ingredients that are part of it, and I can avoid oil if I'm wanting to, which I try to. So, but you definitely could kind of substitute whatever flavors or textures you prefer. So definitely, yeah, you can definitely kind of sub out something that you like better.
Okay.
Great question.
I love how versatile both of your recipes are. You always give so many awesome suggestions for substitutions, really make it how, everyone wants it exactly to be. That's perfect.
Well, that's what we both want. Want people to make it their own. So we try to give some other ideas too.
I love it. That's so great. Okay, Michele, a question for you. Someone was wondering if they could use golden beets instead of red beets for the beet hummus.
You could, sure. That's what when I was baby stepping my way to eating red beets, I started with the golden beets. So you can.
Okay, very nice.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no worries. Okay, Michele, someone asked, they said, did Michele say you can make the ice cream even without an ice cream making machine? Could you just run through quickly how someone would do that if they don't have an ice cream machine?
You'd still go through blending it in a high-speed blender and then pouring it into a container and putting it in the freezer. And you're gonna have to take it out. It's gonna be a little harder, and then just scoop it up. Like it's not gonna be the same consistency, but it's still gonna be good. So this is super creamy, but you'll just scoop it up, kind of like ice cream. It's gonna be, Vicki, what do you think when you've done? I haven't done it like that, but you said.
Yeah. I definitely, and I've been asked this a lot as well, because I make a lot of ice creams as also like Michele does. And so I would say that you would do exactly what Michele said. You would blend it, you'd freeze it, and then you could either kind of stir it occasionally while you're freezing it to kind of keep it sort of rotating a little, or just take it out as almost, a almost hard block and put it into a high speed blender or whatever blender you've got, and just kind of mix it up a little bit until it's the texture of kind of a soft serve, and then eat it immediately. The real difference with the ice cream maker is that it's kind of hands off. So it's doing a lot of that work for you, and it buys you some time so that you can put it away and you can enjoy it later. It's all ready to eat. It's already added in all that air. But if you don't have that, you certainly can enjoy the wonders of homemade ice cream by just kind of doing. And I did that for a long time before I had an ice cream maker. I just took those ingredients, whatever combination I was using, and just used my Vitamix to kind of create what turns into an ice cream. The other thing I'll say is that sometimes when I'm making an ice cream, I have more of my liquid, not this one that Michele made, but other types that I sometimes make. And I've got just a little more than will fill my container to the right level without overflowing. So sometimes I'll just pour the leftover into little popsicle shape silicone holders. And so it doesn't have any air added. It's just that blended, delicious mixture of the ice cream before it's frozen. And even that's wonderful. So just turning those same flavors into popsicles are really great too. So definitely you can get around not having an ice cream maker, no problem.
But I do want to say they're not that expensive. I do love mine. I don't use it that often, but it's nice when I want it. So, I like ice cream and all that, but it's just much more decadent and rich to have the actual ice cream without the dairy fat and all that. So.
Sure.
It's true. They're not that expensive, or, you can pay a lot. Kind of depends what your budget is. But some people maybe don't want to have it because maybe it's a trigger, or maybe they don't have room for it or something like that. So it may be other reasons they don't want to have it, but you could maybe instead just have little popsicle holders like these. These are, I think, $15 or something like that for a set of these, where you can pour the same stuff and turn it into a popsicle. They stack because they're, and again, or just the little containers that Michele was showing that we both love, those little individual sizes, but you can create a little popsicle and just pop it right out, and without an ice cream maker. So you can enjoy frozen treats lots of different ways.
And I also like using the push-ups. I've got a number of those molds. So and I think that works for these kind of things, like the ice cream. I use it for that. I'll put them in there too.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Lots of awesome tips. Okay, we are getting close to 8, but we just have a couple more questions. So the first is, someone asked if you have any recommendations for gluten-free bread.
I'm gluten-free, and I don't, gluten-free and vegan are a little harder to find, or gluten-free, like if you can have corn or oats, you have more options. They do tend to they get moldy, they're much more expensive, and they get moldy right away. So it's good to keep it in the refrigerator or freezer. And usually they need to be toasted. And I did a food for what is that? The foods of what? I can't think of that. It's the same company as Ezekiel. And I used muffins for another class we did. And so that they taste all right but it's not like getting it from a bakery. I know a friend of mine is just going gluten-free and is having a really hard time giving up bread. But that's why doing other things too is collard wraps aren't a substitute for bread by any means, but it gives you that vehicle for, like, you can have something you can pick up and eat.
Absolutely. All right. Okay.
I'm sorry, there are some, I keep thinking of things like, there are some bakeries that do have gluten-free breads that are better, but do check, because a lot of them use eggs. And if you're vegan, you're not going to want that.
Definitely. Okay, last question before we will get to the cookbook raffle. This is for both of you. If you could just answer quickly, as we are just right past 8. Someone was just wondering, how long have you guys each been plant-based, and have you seen improved health for yourselves over that time?
Yeah, I took a very circuitous path. I started, with giving up, like, sometimes for the animals, then for the environment, for my health. And it took me a while because I did it so slowly. I was in a real bad car accident. I had a pain condition, and I didn't realize till later that my pain was much more under control when I gave up all the pro-inflammatory foods. So that was a big thing for me.
And for me, I've been vegan and then fully plant-based since probably about 2009. And I did it originally for health reasons because I have a family history of heart disease and diabetes and high blood pressure. And I just wanted to be as proactive as I could as I was getting older to be, you know, a little bit more in control of what I was putting into my body. So that's what kind of led me down that path. And immediately, although I wasn't like, I don't have a really dramatic story, my cholesterol dropped about 50 points within just a few weeks. And I lost 10 pounds that I'd been struggling with ever since I had babies and long given up on losing, and with, you know, effortlessly. So and then my blood pressure also became, you know, very normal instead of high normal. And so, yeah, you know, but the main things besides those kind of small check marks is that I just felt so much better, and really just head to toe, and just emotionally, and just more energy, and just everything kind of changed about my outlook on, you know, just really everything. It really changes how you feel.